Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line on this Tuesday. I am Nick Barris, and if you've been tuning in lately, you know they've been taped shows. We had taken a break. This is the time of year a lot of people go on vacation in life, but I'm back live. This is live today. This is Tuesday. Let's see, I lose track, July 12th. We're rocking and rolling. We're going to open up the phone lines. You're invited to join in the conversation as always with whatever our topic is, of course, but it's just good to be back with you live. I'm in studio right now, and wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you since the 4th of July and the like before that. I hope you've had a good past week or so, but today we're going to be talking about the law. We're going to talk about elder care, the law, setting things up for retirement, that kind of stuff. As you know, we do this on a semi-regular basis with our friends from Takacs, McGinnis. They do a great job. It's a chance to get some free legal advice on everything from wills, if you want to ask questions about reverse mortgages, if you have a question about how to set up power of attorney, things like this that I really feel too many people put off until they really need them, and then sometimes it's too late, and if it's not too late, it's just very hectic to get it done. So you're invited to join in this, and we're also going to start the show maybe talking about some of the awful scams out there that are targeting senior citizens. I've had a case, and our guest this morning was just telling me about one that's made national news, and for that, we will go to the one and only Chris Johnson with Takacs and McGinnis. Good morning to you, sir. It's nice to have you. It's nice to be back doing a live show this morning.
Morning, Nick. It's nice to be here. It's always good to be doing a live show with you.
Exactly. A pleasure. And listen, we'll get into a lot of the details. We may take some phone calls as we talk about elder law. Actually, just for all of our viewers who tune in, and we have many that are sometimes first-time viewers before we get into some of these scams and others, describe for us what a typical client for you is in the elder law realm.
I think, Nick, the typical client is someone who is kind of nearing retirement age, starting to contemplate that, maybe late 50s, early 60s, and looking to plan ahead, and then everywhere right into the full-blown senior realm. Hey, we're in our 70s, we're in our 80s, and we need to get these documents in place. It doesn't stop the younger clients from coming in. We're glad, even with elder care law in our name. I've had clients as young as in their 20s, and they're just, you know, they're go-getters. They're kind of the gold star. We're going to get this stuff done early, and we're going to have it taken care of. So we'll take the whole spectrum. It's just more what planning you're done. The younger you are, the more simple and straightforward your planning is. You're just getting started out. Your life just isn't as complex. And then you have people who maybe are on the doorstep of the skilled nursing facility, and their process is very complex at that point. There's a lot of work that needs to be done and a fair amount of scrambling. And there's really everywhere in between. But the bottom line is, if you're over 18, you should have at a minimum wills and powers of attorney. A will and powers of attorney, if you're a married couple, you each need a will. And if you don't have those things, you're leaving yourself vulnerable.
And you know, there's people out there that, you know, you would consider educated or knowledgeable about the world around them. I'm telling you, so many, and I count myself among them, who until, you know, really the point where I realized I was going to need it for my parents, I didn't have any of those in place, and I should have, and thanks to you guys at Takacs and McGinnis, I've got a lot of that stuff lined up. Do you have any numbers at all, Steve or Chris, on what percentage of Americans actually have addressed some of the things you just said? Is it 50%? Is it less than that? Is it more than that? How many people right now? It's less. It's less. So yeah, how many people actually have wills?
And I don't have the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers offhand, but I know the last time I looked at it, I want to say it was south of 25%, and it's stunning. And people say, well, what happens? Well, the state takes over. The state has something called intestacy laws, and those are laws of what happens to your estate if you pass without a will. And what's frustrating is most people very much don't want the state making those decisions, but when they don't take the proactive measures to make those decisions themselves, that's exactly what happens. And people are stunned to know that. And then the same thing is with powers of attorney. That's the transfer of legal decision-making authority if you're unable to do so. And people are stunned. Like, we had two just this past week who said, well, I'm his wife. don't I automatically get to make decisions on his behalf? And I was like, no, just because you're a spouse, whether you're her husband or wife or what have you, you don't automatically legally get that decision making. The person, the principal, has to actually take proactive steps and delegate that authority via the healthcare power of attorney or durable general power of attorney. And it really is a knowledge issue, which is why we love being on the show. We do lots of outreach stuff in our community and extended communities in the Middle Tennessee area, because so many people just aren't aware of this stuff. And when they do hear about it, they're like, I need to take care of this right away. And the more people that take care of it, the better the result. And so that's the goal, is to make sure people understand these things and understand there are serious ramifications if you don't have your proverbial ducks in a row.
Yeah, it's going to take time. It's going to cost you money. And I don't know how many people watching right now have power of attorney or know exactly what that is. But I think you and I have talked before where we say, of all the things, I know wills are up on that list as well, but getting power of attorney for, someone like an elderly parent as they age or lot is about at the top of the list of the most important thing that really will help you out, right? And it is easy to get, right?
Oh, it's incredibly easy, Nick. That's really the frustrating part, is how simple they are to get and how generally not too expensive they are when you consider you're going to a law office. It's one of the least expensive things to get taken care of. And like my wife and I, we have power of attorney for each other. We haven't had to need it yet, but it's one of those things that you don't want to be trying to get it taken care of when you need it, because typically you need it when someone's become incapacitated and now they can't authorize power of attorney for you. And then the problem is the powers of attorney are the most important documents because they take care of you while you're alive. That power of attorney authority exists when you're living, but for whatever reason cannot take actions, legal, financial, healthcare, on your own. You need this assistance. And if you don't have these documents, there is another avenue, but it's a painful avenue. It's called a conservatorship. You need to petition the court and ask for a conservatorship to be given. And now you're literally asking them to strip that loved one's rights and give them to another person. And as you can imagine, the courts are reluctant to do that. They will, because there are times where it's very necessary. But at the same token, the hurdles and the bars for entry are very high because we take our individual rights very seriously. And the court wants to find any less intrusive remedy to fix the situation than to simply strip someone's rights. And so it's time consuming, it's expensive, and it's emotionally, it's very, very taxing. If you have powers of attorney in place, you just completely remove the need for that situation.
And it's interesting too, as I was saying, I have power of attorney in place for both of my elderly parents, and it's come in handy for us. They're still lucid and can function, but they need some help sometimes. But you talked about how you have power of attorney for your wife, and she does for you, for the very reason, even though she's your wife, God forbid if something bad were to happen to you, there are still certain things that she can't just do willy-nilly on her own simply because she's your wife.
That's right. She couldn't do something as simple as what we would consider routine annually. She couldn't sign my name to file our taxes. She doesn't have the legal authority. She wouldn't have the legal authority to do that without a power of attorney. We have joint accounts, but we also have individual accounts. And so she would need access to those individual accounts, and I'd need access to her individual accounts. If I were in a car accident, if someone hit me and I'm in a coma or, in a bad medical state, something as simple as hiring an attorney on my behalf so that we could file suit. All of those things, you need that delegated legal authority. And so you hope that you never need these documents. You hope that you don't need the powers of attorney. But I tell my clients all the time, hope is not a course of action. Hope is not a good plan. We hope for a lot of things, but that's not what we plan for. We plan for the worst case scenarios, and having those powers of attorney always on the shelf. And then what I tell my clients is, if you do get power of attorney for your parents, scan it, email it to yourself, and put it in your email, because what's the one thing that you always have with you? It's always within arm's reach. It's your phone. And so you could be at the beach, you could be in the shower, you could be wherever. But if you get a phone call and something bad has happened to your loved one, you can grab that phone, you can answer the call, say, where do I forward power of attorney? And now you can start having those discussions, especially healthcare, where time can be of the essence, right away, and start doing good right away.
I'm guessing if there is a barrier as to why some of our viewers or others who are aware of this have not sought them out yet, it's one, procrastination, two, concerned about maybe the cost, what it takes to get it done. We've just established it's not that hard to do. But can you just give someone, just real quick before going to the break, a nutshell of the steps you take, and in general, the range of cost it takes to set up power of attorney, say, if you want to set it up for you and your spouse?
Absolutely. A lot of people get what we call paralysis by analysis. They get kind of scared making these decisions, and they are big deal decisions. Who do you trust with your legal and financial decisions? Who do you trust with your health care? And you'll want to know those things, because the attorney inevitably is going to ask you, who do you want to be in charge? And I always like to have at least one person in charge and one backup. I prefer two backups, because tomorrow's never promised for any of us, and I want to make sure that these documents stand the test of time. So if something happens to your primary, there's someone to step into their shoes. So you're going to want to know the people who you choose. And I always say they need to have integrity. And if they're your financial, legal power of attorney, they should be good at math. So those questions are going to be asked. And then for cost, powers of attorney, if you just get powers of attorney done, that can be just a few $100s at your local attorney's office. And a basic estate plan, you're talking, between $1,000 and $2,000 with just a simple will and powers of attorney. And remember, it's money well spent, because the odds are, especially if you have a simple plan, you're going to put that in place, and you're probably not going to need to touch that maybe 10, 20 years. Now, I always say your plans are like a car. After, every couple of years, you want to look at it, see if there's any maintenance that needs to be done. And probably after 10 or 15 years, you've had kids, or your kids are grown up and moved out. Maybe your plan needs an overhaul. Maybe you want to replace it with a new plan. But at the end of the day, they should generally stand the test of time. Once the planning's done, you probably have a good decade or 2 decades of, hey, this is exactly what I need.
Perfect. Listen, we're going to take a break, my friend. When we come back, more of our conversation. We have a few questions from folks watching as well. We'll touch on some of the scams you and I were discussing earlier in the show as well. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more Morning Line and our fine guest right after this.